Um, it's Tracy Abbott from Microlink. We're starting our session on how to be more disability confident. We've got a great bunch of individuals today with some good stories to help you on your journey to disability confidence. And it really is a day where we're going to ask you to take action at the end of this. We're going to send a great resource sheet out. A lot of the resources are free. The ones that aren't free are incredibly good value for money. So I really would like to see in a couple of months' time all of you taking some great leap forwards. Just to say on the housekeeping side today, we've got My Clear Text. Thank you very much from Orla. Captioning. So we will be sending out recording along with the resource sheet. And if anybody has any issues with listening in or what we're doing or what we're saying or viewing anything, stick your hand up and we'll sort it out for you. So lovely to see you. NASA, if you'd like to start us off, please.
And hello to everyone. Welcome to another series of our Disability Confident events. We were hoping to have the Minister Chloe Smith today as opening the session. Unfortunately, due to lots of other conflicting, I'm sure, priorities, she couldn't be with us. However, we have such a fantastic panelist today that I think you'll love to hear from them. We've been very fortunate to be accompanied by Business Disability Forum, Jody Greer, and Gavin Neat, and we're hoping to have also from DFN. But we're waiting for that to happen. We haven't had to join him. I hope she's traveling today. Anyway, without too much of a delay, I just want to give a very quick background of this particular session. 3 years ago, we were looking at COVID pandemic uncertainty, and then many people, including myself, predicted high unemployment, nearly 4 million in UK, because quite clearly everything went into a meltdown. But today, actually, we have a completely different picture. We have unemployment very low, and actually the loss of vacancies not being filled. And that is actually very unusual. And then no need to mention the huge increase in cost of living, the inflation, and all the uncertainties. There is also some other new events that what's happening because of the COVID. We learned some really new survival techniques. You know, remote working is something that is become so every day. Hybrid working is now standard in most employers. Whereas before we were hoping that employers would not be losing all the gains we had over the years on disability. We actually discovered that having this remote working or pandemic opened their eyes to possibilities. Actually started being more inclusive because they felt the whole population became disabled. They started finding solutions that previously they resisted. So I think we learned some really valuable lessons, how to do things differently and better. Well, of course, where we had this fear of employment gap increasing for disabled people, we heard from the minister recently that there have been 1.3 million disabled people have got into employment. What would be good to look at also, how many disabled people have left employment, because we know the number of people with disabilities is increasing quite alarmingly. Because of the COVID, we've had more than 1 million people with long COVID, which are similar to other long-term disabilities. We also have people with mental health and anxieties, which is increasing. So it has been quite unpleasant for some. While some found it very liberating, a lot of people who couldn't travel to work or who would find working from home much more comfortable, they just found themselves in their new elements. They could actually perform the tasks they've been given. So here is where the challenge for employers are. How do we attract, the best talent, and how do we retain them? And whereas previously it was hard for them to know about disability and what disabled people could offer, now is the time, because we know disabled people have creativity, resilience, loyalty, and it's easier now to recruit them. because it's remote working, and also the fact that we're used to actually be managing employees, not being in the office. But it's not to say that the problem's solved, but it's a journey. So today we've really got this fantastic panelists, and they're all experts in their own field. They have amazing offers of support assistance to get you from where you are to be great at managing disabled employees, as well as serving your disabled customers. You know, I think even before we start with the panelists, what we want to do is just do a very quick poll, Slido, about some information that might be useful to steer our conversation in that direction. So, Tracy, would you like to do the first?
Today, can you do the poll for us?
Which one do you want me to start?
This is the one that we sent through about the number of disabled people currently. This is actually based on the London figures, where there's 85% of employment currently.
If you haven't got it, we'll come back to that later.
No, we'll come back to that later.
Okay. So without much delay, I would like to introduce Jodie Greer. And Jodie, I've known her for many years. She used to work in Shell company. Fantastic and very passionate person about disability. She's the MD and founder of Smart People. There's a hashtag in front of it as well, Jodie, sorry. Who will talk about free maturity model that she has developed in conjunction with subject matter experts, including those from Microlink. Model aims to guide through the levels of skills to reach excellence across all areas of your business. So this is not just about looking after your employees, it's also looking after your customers. Okay, Jodie, do you want to, do you want to go, please?
Hi, NASA. Hello, everyone. I'm actually from Be People Smart. NASA was getting tongue-tied then.
Well,
so, yeah. I know, Tracy, you had a couple of questions as well, didn't you, about the maturity model? So maybe I can answer them as we go, and then we can actually show people what it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to understand the why you did it. There's loads of different models and things out there that people have done, but you reached out to the whole community globally, didn't you, to actually inform on this? Why did you do it? Why did you think we needed it?
So, I mean, this goes back years, to be honest. So over the years, of course, different models have appeared. Some have more content than others. But when I was having open conversations with different business leaders, the reality was a lot of people didn't really understand disability inclusion. They didn't really know what good looked like and how to get there. And unfortunately, most of the models are limited. I mean, don't get me wrong, ours isn't, completely extensive. There's always going to be more points.
Yeah.
But if you've only got, say, I don't know, 5 or 6 bullet points for a certain maturity level within a certain area of your business, you may meet them, but then what else is there? And that was kind of the big question from people to me is, what else is there? What should I be doing? So I recognize this need to have a maturity model that is actually a lot more explicit and a lot more kind of concise and thorough, in a sense of what does different levels of maturity actually look like in real life. And that's what I wanted to try and give to the world, which is why it's literally given away. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But so the idea is it's quite clear and crisp, and you can go through kind of step by step. So as an example, in the built environment, if I said to facilities managers, are your lifts accessible? They're going to probably say to me, absolutely, wheelchairs can get in. If I start asking them about, audible information, both inside and outside of a car, low-level mirrors, tactile controls, all of a sudden that's a very different question. And that's where maturity comes in, and that shows, true inclusion and accessibility. So it was things like that, trying to be a lot more explicit around what it really looks like if you're going to have absolute best practice.
Why would anybody bother to have absolutely best practice? What's going to drive it? Why do they need it?
Well, some people care about people. So, of course, human beings matter, right? So some people, it's kind of that hearts and minds things. But the reality is, from a business perspective, it's a massive value driver. You know, we look at this huge number of like 19% of adults have got a disability. So that is a huge amount of people that could come into your workplace with the talent they've got, with the education they've got, with the experience they've got. We also know people with disabilities by default often have added skills as well, because of their, you know, naturally needing different, you know, coping mechanisms and learning different smarter ways of doing things. Who doesn't want smarter ways of doing things? It's good for business. So that whole talent attraction is massive, but also I'm sure the last figure I saw was around 80% of disabilities in adults are actually gained in adulthood.
Yeah, they are.
So that also means that the talent you've got, you know, are you going to be able to keep them? If someone becomes disabled, does your business enable them to continue giving you that productivity and all their skills and experience? Hopefully it does, because otherwise the business loses out, and so does the individual.
For sure. And I mean, it's the IP of the business that goes when they go, isn't it? It's not just the individual.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of the things that I love about this, and I think Jodie's actually going to go through it for us very quickly, but one of the things I love is the fact that it enables the people in D&I or the odd person in IT or in HR that have taken this on board to actually really encourage the rest of the business to join in, because you can give them little bits, can't you, to do, and it's all done concurrently, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. You can, you know, you can run a pilot within your business in one particular business area, and we can have a look at what I mean by that. So you can kind of proof in the pudding, and then you can help other people to understand it so that they can run it for their own areas. You can set your priorities to start with. You might only want to look at 2 or 3 areas to start. There are 10. But those that are more mature, then hopefully they will cover all 10. They will see where they really are. And even those that, you know, have put some real effort into this space, they might surprise themselves, if they're honest with themselves, as to some gaps that they can now recognise and they can actually work to fill.
And the nice thing is this isn't public. This is you do it for yourself as a business.
Yes.
If you've got challenges that you want solved, please go back to Jodie, come to another company, go to BDF or whatever. But you don't have to air your dirty laundry. You just have to start doing the laundry.
It's very important to always not just to say why you do it, it's also how you do it. And these resources are extremely valuable for getting people to get to where they need to get to. And they've got support from peers who've already done that journey and can actually guide them very quickly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. That's also why we've got really clear guidance for the model, because we wanted to help people to be able to set a scene, to help them to kind of start that collaboration internally. We didn't want to just sort of someone to feel like they've been given a tool and sort of dumped in the middle of some sort of big puddle and told to get on with it. So we wanted to make sure that they had the help that they needed. So that's exactly where we sort of started from. So there's lots of guidance in there, but also the whole thing about it being free. There's no hidden elements behind that. It's absolutely genuine. You literally access it through the click of a button. You don't ask us to send it to you, so your name's on the list. And a couple of reasons we did it this way. One was so there's no barrier. People aren't unsure about it. Also, so people don't feel like they're going to be hounded. But also a big reason it being free is because it is intended for a global audience as well, is to make sure that different economical markets aren't outpriced. So we wanted to make sure everybody has access to this, and the license actually allows for commercial use as well. So people, you know, other consultants are working with businesses, they can use the model.
Can we actually go through it a bit? As today, could
Yes.
we bring the model up so that Jodie can show people how straightforward and unscary it is, quite frankly?
So I will just let you know, I saw someone popped into the chat about where to find it. If you go to bepeoplesmart.co.uk, you will see a tools and resources tab. If you go into there, you'll see the page, and I think it's actually the first option is the link to the maturity model. You'll see the guidance. Right at the bottom is a button to click into the model itself. So what we have, and what you can see on screen, which might look similar to some other models that you've seen, is an overview of the 10 different areas. So this is like the high level, just giving you a bit of a sense of what's included, but also this is the kind of level that can help when you're sharing with senior leaders, etc. So for instance, if you can scroll across for me, I just want to show people that they can put some comments in. So for instance, you can put in your current scores, when they were taken, your short-term target. You can also put in when you want to, reach that, so that you can amend the cells there. And also make yourself some notes. So you might want to say about, the good stuff you've already done, some of the things you want to achieve in specifics. So that's kind of yours to play with. And again, no one can see this. This is literally going to be downloaded locally. And then the way it works to actually look at your maturity itself, as a day, if you want to choose one of the tabs, doesn't really matter which. Okay, so built environment is a good example, and I mentioned it before. So the idea is that in different levels, you can go through and you can look at each of the points, and under criteria met, there's a yes, no, and a not applicable. So if it literally doesn't apply, and this is in the guidance, but if it literally doesn't apply in your location or your industry, I mean, if we're talking about staircases and you're in a single level warehouse, then you haven't got any staircases. So of course it's not applicable. What we do say is it's not a get out clause. That's where maturity comes in. So you go through, and if we can just scroll down a bit as a day, please, just so that people can see what I mean. Just for the record, this is the longest one. And the reason it's the longest one is, as I say, it is very explicit for different built environment areas. I will show you a kind of parallel in a moment, because they're all relevant to the business area. So I know this is a very fleeting view, but of course you're all free to go and download it after this session and take a look for yourself. But if we could go into procurement and supply partners as a day, please. I just want to show how they're not all as long as this one. It is just what we needed to include to make sure that people understood different levels of maturity and what inclusion looks like. So yeah, this is another example. So for anyone that can see on the screen here, we've all of a sudden reduced the points dramatically. So again, on the left-hand side of the screen here, so it should have been a bit more descriptive. We've got maturity levels 1 through 5, but each point has, whether it's 1, which is disabling, 2, which is intent, 3, strategic, 4, enabling, or 5, leader. And beside those, there are multiple points that meet that level. And that is where you say, your yes, your no, and not applicable. Once you do that, and you actually get yourself a score, on row 2, there's a space to put the date where you did it, and you can put your current score. If you click on enable editing as a day, please, and then go to cell E2, I'll just show, it's just a sort of little helping hand for people. If we go to cell E2 on this one, we're just going to put a score in, just a dummy score.
Sorry, Jodie, I can't find which tab are you?
No, the same tab.
Oh, same tab. This one.
Go to the cell E2.
So at the very top, we've got the letters across the top as a day. That's
yeah,
it.
A2.
E2.
E2.
Please.
So it's hiding behind our pictures, our lovely pictures.
Yeah. So if you put a score in there, it doesn't really matter what score, anything from 1 to 5, and you can put a 0.5, so maybe 3.5, something like that. You need to click on enable editing though.
Enable editing.
Right at the top. Yeah, just along a bit.
Down on the yellow ribbon as a day in the middle. That's it.
Thank you. The good thing is this is real life what it looks like. Oh, we've lost the screen share.
I don't know whether that was Kimini just deciding I'm not working too much.
And if so this is what I was just going to show you. So it's just a little sort of helping hand. So when you put your score in there, it will tell you what level. So again, it's the whole disabling through to leader. And if you can give yourself a 0.5, because it's important to show progress, and it'll also help to demonstrate that. So it will say, for instance, strategic and progressing, or leader, and so on. So yeah, so you got space for notes and all that sort of stuff. What would be wonderful, of course, is if people start using this, or I'd like to say when people start using it, it'd be wonderful to get some feedback from you. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can certainly reach out to us at Be People Smart, because we always want to know, and of course this is going to be updated certainly on an annual basis. We want to capture your feedback when we do it.
Fantastic. And it's important also to know that you can download the spreadsheet. There was a question there. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Jody, how do we map the disability confident journey level 1, 2, and 3 to your tool? Because it's a lot of people on this panel, on this event, they've come maybe on different levels of disability confidence. They want just the guidance. I'm in level 1, want to go to level 2, then I want to go to that leadership. But let me put another very important point. Disability confidence is not the end. Once you get on that journey, then really great things happen. So hopefully this is a good start, and the tool will help you get there. So anyway, how do you map out the different parts of your maturity tool towards that journey?
So the honest answer, NASA, is they don't sort of go apples and apples. They don't go hand in hand, level to level. Mm-hmm. So it will take a little bit of homework if that's what you're specifically looking for. But I guess my ask and my take on it to everybody listening today is that anyone who wants to be disability confident, then ultimately you want to be mature on the disability model. Yeah. So yes, you're going to set your priorities. And the other thing I just want to add, because it's really important, is you may never get to 5s in some of your business areas. You may never get to 5 in any of your business areas, not through want of intent, but different businesses, you've got very different structures and all sorts of stuff. So 4s are certainly, when you get there, to be applauded and to be celebrated. I just want to make that really, really clear. But of course, if you do get to 5, shout that from the rooftops as well. But yeah, I just wanted to share that, but it is in the guidance. So we want to make sure that people understand the sort of levels and what to aim for.
It's important. The measurement is important so they know they are progressing. That's really the key here.
Yeah.
And disability confidence means different things to different sectors, different peoples. Hence, I think the main point we're really trying to raise is you need to be on that train, and it's going to good places. And obviously, you don't reach perfection overnight. You got to work at it, and hopefully, with all the guidance and help you're getting today, will be a great way to do that. Well, obviously, we've got questions coming in. We can answer that later, unless there's anything right now that we can ask Jody. Is there any questions in the Q&A?
No, I mean, actually, the one that just came up was somebody talking about if it's just physical changes that you're looking to make within the maturity model. Does it cover everything like mental health and autism and things like that?
So yes, it absolutely does. It certainly covers neurodiversity, physical, visual, hearing, etc. And also the business areas themselves. So for instance, we've got built environment, which is quite, specifically for your physical environment. But then we have the digital side. We've also got communication and customer service, and then procurement that we showed you. So, I mean, that was just some of the 10. So it really does sort of cover an awful lot of your business. And again, some areas might not be applicable to your business specifically, but those where it is, hopefully it can really help make a difference.
Fantastic.
I think the important thing that I would add to this is make sure that you do actually read the notes before you launch into it, because it can be quite daunting. But if you actually do read the notes thoroughly, and there are so many people around, as Jody said, within our own team, within the extended family we've got here, that are more than happy to help anybody on this road. But the call to action is go find Jody's website, download the maturity model, have a look at the personas bit. Could you tell us a tiny bit about the personas as well, Jody? Because I love this.
So it's another free resource that we have. So we've got yeah, everyone loves free. So we've got a suite of personas. I feel like they're my friends. I'm told I'm sad for this. One of them is actually based on me, which was a random add-on that I was like, really? So we've got 5 different personas that have got different disabilities. They really vary, including neurodiversity, but they've got backstories. They've got likes, they've got dislikes, and they've got experiences. And every single one of them is based on multiple people and all of the stories and challenges and successes and all sorts of things that they've shared with me over the years. So trying to build them into just several personas was really, really interesting. So we have got that, but then we've also got me, because for anyone who doesn't know me, I am, as I class myself, currently non-disabled. So I'm very, very passionate, but I don't have a disability. And actually, you know, that's also really essential in any workplace, because this isn't, you know, a club for disabled people.
Yeah.
It's about human beings, and it's about all of us. And the reality is, like I said, about this 80% number of people becoming, you know, disabled in adult life, none of us know what tomorrow is. So hopefully, if it happens to me, the world will be fit to be able to enable me.
There's that famous saying, "We are not disabled yet."
Yeah, exactly that.
That is a guarantee, and it's a low barrier for entry as well. I must say, having lived with it myself, I know how you could struggle and how wonderful life can become if those barriers are removed. Thank you very much, Jody. It's fantastic. Now, I think we got one or two more sliders coming up. But the biggest pain to society, I would say now, is young people with disabilities getting into employment. We know there's a high number of the percentage of young learners leaving education end up being unemployed long term. Now, that is really at a time where we've got such a huge shortage of skilled workforce. And, you know, all these apprenticeship programs and all the other government supported schemes, I think we need to do something different. We can't just carry on as in the past. And so, in particular, SME sector, where there is a huge gap in knowledge and understanding and awareness about the value of disability into their organization. In fact, the knowledge of disability within the SME is very low, not realizing 1 in 5 of the workforce are disabled. And if they're not really managing them properly, then it's a loss of productivity, loss of talent, as well as the huge cost that comes with it. So where do you go for lots of information? Because, you know, if you're starting on this journey or you're already on this journey and you want more information, there's one organization I've got huge admiration for. I've been a member of Business Disability Forum for nearly 12 years, established more than 25 years ago. Very ahead of time. I mean, they're fantastic, charity, and if not the best in the world, it certainly is right at the top.
Yeah.
We have again a privilege and pleasure to have Adrian Ward, who is the head of Disability Partnership at BDF. Adrian will talk about the benefits of membership of BDF, as well as the resources they offer, plus lots of events that is coming up. So Adrian, please take it away. And before that happens, we forgot to mention maybe that we got my clear text doing the captioning. So please do switch on your captioning if you haven't already.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nasser. Thank you, everyone. Really great to be here today. So I was just going to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we support businesses, a little bit about specifically Disability Confident, how we support organisations on their journey around Disability Confident. I'm the gift that keeps on giving, so I'm going to mention some of the free things that are on the radar for people to be tapping into as well. But as Nasser says, I head up the business partnerships team here at BDF, so we are essentially the team that deals with all the relationships with our members and partners. Also, as Nasser said, we've been around for over 25 years now. Used to be Employers Forum on Disability and changed to Business Disability Forum a few years ago. So you might be familiar with the old name, but hopefully familiar with the new name as well. Our mission statement is very much about improving the life chances of disabled people. And we do that by working with businesses to do that. So essentially, we want to help organizations get better at attracting, recruiting, retaining, progressing and developing disabled talent. And equally, we want to work with business to make sure that product and services are fully accessible for disabled people as well. So that employment focus, but also that customer service, consumer focus as well to our work. We work currently with about 460 organizations, many of which are UK based, but we also do support companies globally as well. So our support isn't just limited to working with organizations in the UK. We do also work with SMEs as well. So picking up on Nasser's point there. So some of our services are available to SMEs. If you're a London-based SME, Then we have a free project that currently runs. So I'll provide details later for my email address, etc. So if people are interested in that, very welcome to contact. Importantly, from my perspective, 60%, 60, of our workforce have a disability or long-term condition. It's not a target we particularly set out or set ourselves as an organisation, but that is what our current workforce population looks like. And I think that's very important from a credibility angle, that we've got people working within the organisation with lived experience of disability who are able to understand the barriers that disabled people face, whether that be in employment, whether that be through accessing products and services. So I think that's an important angle from a credibility perspective. So we work and we support with organisations in a number of different ways. We're a membership organisation, although some of the things that I'll mention can be accessed to organisations that aren't members as well. Disability Confident is one of the big areas we do support businesses. And it's actually part of the reason why I'm only able to stay with you until 2 o'clock today, unfortunately, because I am jumping off to support an organisation that's looking at moving to level 3 of the Disability Confidence Scheme presently. So we do support organisations around this. We will work with organisations that are just looking at the Disability Confidence Scheme, maybe just looking at the 5 commitments that are needed to be signed up to be at level 1. We will work with organisations at level 2 who have just perhaps completed their self-assessment for employer status and might just want to get a bit of a sense check about whether they're on the right lines, covering the right sorts of areas within the disability confident approach. And then finally, we do also work with companies that are looking to become a disability confident leader, which is at level 3 status, which needs to be externally validated in some shape or form. So we provide that pre-submission support around disability confident level 3, but we also actually carry out the validation as well. We also don't want it just to be purely a validation, rubber stamping type process. So when we do carry out a validation, we will also provide a debrief feedback session so organisations know where they are, but we'll also give them some pointers on how they can go even further as well. Part of our role, part of our remit is to continually push organisations to be doing more and more in this space. So we just don't want to tick boxes and sign off forms and validate. We just want to push organisations that little bit further as well. We support organisations in loads of different ways. One of the main ways, I think organisations getting this right in the disability inclusion space is there's 2 or 3 things that need to come into play. I think your policies, your processes and your people are absolutely key to this. So a lot of the services we provide are aimed at actually getting those 3 things right. So for example, we carry out policy reviews as part of the services that we provide. And typically we'll be looking at things like attendance management, performance management, recruitment, workplace adjustments being a really big area of focus, and helping organisations get the right policies in place. Equally, we'll be looking at processes, and workplace adjustments would be a really good example of that, to make sure organisations have really slick, effective processes for getting adjustments in place, and that's working efficiently for people within the organisation. So that's just one example of a process which is critical to the experience of a disabled employee, or some disabled employees. Not everyone will require an adjustment. So getting that right has such a huge impact on people's experience within the working environment. And then people are key. So your people managers are the shop window for your organisation. You need managers that are not necessarily disability experts, but people that are comfortable having supportive, sensitive conversations, people that are confident in knowing what they need to do as a manager if an individual requires an adjustment. So they know what their role and their responsibility is. So I don't think it's necessarily a case of turning people into disability experts, although that would be nice, but having the confidence to have supportive and sensitive conversations is really key as well. So we have services that can help with that. So we run events, webinars, networks and task forces where we are helping to upskill and helping people understand their roles and their remits within an organisation. We have an advice service, which again is there to support HR colleagues, diversity and inclusion colleagues, line managers in how they can effectively support colleagues working in the organisation as well. So for me, it's about those policies, those processes, and then getting the right people skilled in the right ways to be able to support people effectively within the organisation. And that's how we try to support people. We do have things like learning and development and consultancy services as well. And organisations don't need to be a member of BDF to be able to access those services. So I just wanted to flag that as well. And what I really wanted to touch on today is some of the free resources that are available. And I know this is going to be circulated subsequently to the event as well. And I'll pop some information into the chat function as well. But we have what we call our Disability Essentials range, which is a whole host of free resources that are available. And particularly coming from the disability confident angle, there are quite a lot of resources within that range which focus on the attraction and recruitment of disabled talent and the ability to make adjustments for people within the organisation as well. So I would really encourage people to look at the Disability Essentials range, resources that can be downloaded from there. I mentioned the SME project at the start. So we do have an SME project focusing purely on London-based SMEs, which is completely free for SMEs. So I would definitely encourage organisations, if they're interested, if they want to know a bit more about it, to get in touch. We do have an SME membership offer as well, really for organisations outside of London, which can be tapped into as well. It is, NASA touched on it, it's a particular area which does need more focus. We've never quite cracked it until the last year or so, where we started to create more focus on that. But SMEs are still the biggest employer within the UK, well, within anywhere within the world. So it is important, if we're really going to create this right environment for disabled people, whether that's in employment or provision of services, that we do crack the SME side of things and get that right in some shape or form.
Totally agree, Adrian.
And then the last thing I was just going to mention is our annual conference, which is taking place next Wednesday. I'm going to pop some information in the chat function there. The online event is absolutely available to anyone and everyone that would like to come along. The more the merrier, definitely. The conference next week has a very big focus on customer and consumer experience. So it's very much about making sure products and services are fully accessible for your clients, for your customers, for your service users, etc. So I'll pop some information how to register on the link there. If I can just ask one thing from people that register, if you can just put complimentary place offered by Adrian in the chat, in the function that's there, it just means that my events team can just stand down, take it easy, no need to involve people, etc. So just pop that in, it's a complimentary place. So it's online. There is an in-person element to it. So if anyone's really desperate to be there in person, we might be able to squeeze you into that. But in terms of the online event, absolutely unlimited. So as many people as possible can attend that. We've probably got a handful of in-person spaces. So Sophia, I can see your message. I'll put my email address in there. If you email me very quickly after the session today, we'll try and get you an in-person slot at the conference. So I'm not going to say too much more. Really, just we're here. We're happy to support businesses. You don't have to be a member to access some of the services we provide.
Well, Adrian, you missed the most important one you do, Disability Smart Awards.
We do our Disability Smart Awards. It's annual award. April next year, I think, is our next one. So that the awards will open around about September, October time, where people can submit their nominations for great things they're doing in the disability inclusion space.
And proudly sponsored by Microlink, I take it.
Oh, that's a discussion we can have. That's absolutely.
Yes.
Can I just ask, Azadeh, we had a question, I think. We wanted to do a quick poll for Adrian and BDF. Do we have that there, please?
And we had one for maturity model. We didn't launch that either.
Okay, could we do that after we've done Adrian and NASA? Bless you. So we've got a question here. Who can join the Business Disability Forum? Is it just for large global companies? Is it for SMEs, or is it for every company? So who can join the Business Disability Forum? Large global companies, SMEs, or every company? If you could just put a vote in that, I'd just like to see if you really get how open it is. It's really weird because you can't see a response and it all goes quiet. There we go. Your message got across. That's fantastic. It is indeed every company, isn't it, Adrian?
It is indeed. Yes, that's good. That's live feedback on the message was received. So that's good. I like that.
And seriously, I worked with BDF myself prior to Microlink for nearly 8 years, and they are an amazing bunch of individuals. The knowledge and depth of experience and lived experience for many of them is just, it's fantastic. And I can't recommend you highly enough. I think you're brilliant. I really do. So go and have a look. And even if you just use the free resource, use the free resource. So the call to action again, go and have a look at the BDF events, join virtually for the event next week, which should be great, and look at the free resource, and then go and talk to people about finding the money to become members at least.
Well, having been involved with some global disability initiatives as well, I've never seen anything like Business Disability Forum. In terms of depth of knowledge and resources and the support, I don't think anywhere in the world match it. So it's a great credit to them, and they are growing, and that's one of the pleasant surprises of the COVID, because I thought employees would be all running away from disability because they'd be more worried about mainstream. No, it's quite the opposite. The uptake of disability and inclusion is really gone through the roof, and it's such a great thing to hear and to witness. So, and thank you very much, Adrian, for your fantastic contribution to all this.
Thank you both. I was starting to blush a little bit there. So
no, it's the tan covers up your blush. I know. There's a healthy.
Great to see you, Adrian. I will be seeing you next week as well.
No problem. I'll stay on for a little bit, and I'll pop some.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. So if you want to ask another couple of questions, Tracy and Azadeh, then we will do that.
If we can, please. We had some questions for NASA, I think, Azadeh.
Okay.
Okay, so for everybody who's watching in, which sector is your company in, please? So are you an SME? Are you from a large employer, or are you self-employed? So it's the specific sector that the company that you currently work for is in. So are they an SME, so a small to medium enterprise, a large employer, or are you self-employed? I think, Anna, we should be having your countdown music round about now.
Well,
A lovely marketing manager normally does this. Sorry.
We will give them a few more seconds, if that's
okay. Of course.
So I can't remember the tune of Countdown.
It's actually quite an even.
Sorry, I am here in the background.
Thank you.
So
I really appreciate that.
That's quite a good mix. So we don't want to really be focusing on one sector, but large employers are certainly a lot more sophisticated, and there is an increasing effort being put into the inclusion and disability right across the world. But UK is leading. That's the positive. But SMEs certainly need to know about this, and there's a lot of government support. The government has recently announced increasing access to work funding and some health and well-being. Of course, a lot more work needs to happen with the access to work, so improves on the efficiency of delivery, but the intent is there and the funding is going to increase quite a bit. Is there one more question? Or
we've actually got a couple more, I think, but if we could have the next one, please, Azadeh. So how many people do you think are in employment with a disability in London, where there is over 85% employment currently? So this is specific to London, but it's the most up-to-date figure I could find. So is it 15%, 30%, or 45%? So again, how many people do you think are in employment who have a disability in the London area where there is currently over 85% employment? Wow. Surprisingly enough, and I was talking to NASA about that this morning, London is somewhat of an somewhat of an odd one out. I can't say the words with my speech impediment, sorry. And actually it's over 45%, which I found quite extraordinary, partly because people were disclosing or telling or sharing, whichever word you prefer to use, the fact that they had a long-term health condition or a disability. And partly because the amount of people that are in employment, the amount that are disabled within that is going to be a lot higher. But what did you think, Nasa? It's quite surprising.
I was expecting similar figures because of this home working. See, a lot of the barriers of people facing in life was to do with traveling, with having social interactions, but you've opened up such massive opportunity for people who otherwise would not be going through the employment, applying and getting jobs. So yeah, that is really encouraging news. And that's the data backed up by the National Audit Office figures recently, where it showed 1.3 million more disabled people have entered employment since 2013. But it's not, we're not there yet. There's a lot more to be done. There are certain sectors of disability are still massively underrepresented. People with learning disabilities, autism, and quite a few others. And also there's these other additional challenges of mental health and musculoskeletal, which is going to be a huge burden to employers. And certainly, as I said, from one side, we are encouraged by the opportunities opening, but from the other side, we know that there are headwinds coming our way, and we need to start looking and mitigating those. What's the last question?
We don't actually have a last question, I don't think.
Fantastic. So we can.
Oh, we have. Sorry, well done.
Okay.
So the question is, are you, as an individual, or do you know somebody who is disabled? So either are you, or do you know somebody who's disabled? Yes or no? We're curious to see what the audience is. An interesting comment actually in the chat from a lady called Rachel, saying as an autistic person, the idea of disclosing disabilities in an interview is incredibly intimidating. As previously I disclosed I was autistic to employers and they had no idea what it was. And this needs to change. Couldn't agree more.
Well, this is
wow.
this is the data I was hoping to see. Yes, so if you're not disabled, you know someone who's disabled. So we know the problem is huge. And we know also we need to fix it. And the solutions are what we are all hoping to share with you today, and which is a nice segue into our next session. I've got three of my incredibly talented colleagues who are going to talk about practical solutions to accessibility or inclusion. These are very quick sort of tour of what's possible and why we have to do it. But as like Adrian said, that 60% of the BDF employees are disabled. We are quite proud, and we've always disclosed it, that more than half of our employees are disabled, and we never went out particularly targeting disabled people. We are an open employer, very open and inclusive employer. We do not expect people to disclose disabilities. We are looking for talent. As it happens, disabled people seem to apply and like working for us. And some of our longest work, we've been in business for 30 years, and we have helped up to about 500,000 disabled people to succeed in their chosen field, whether it's education, in higher education, or employment. Obviously, the pride comes, all that work is done by my colleagues, and more than half of our colleagues are disabled, including myself, including my business partner, co-founder. We're both quite proud of the fact that we have managed to overcome barriers in life and work, and we've actually succeeded where I think most people who were given the same opportunities would do the same. So condition is not a barrier. What we face in society is what we need to remove. And so my colleagues that will be guiding you through that is Neil Rogers, Dr. Neil Rogers, a great talented man in the area of digital accessibility. So Neil, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Just very briefly, just to give you an overview of what I do here at Microlinks. I'm the head for digital accessibility, as NASA's very kindly introduced me as Neil. So it's great to meet you all. And my main remit is to cover three areas. So, for example, it's web accessibility, mobile accessibility, and electronic document remediation. So, for example, PDFs. So those are the main areas that I cover. Just to let you know that also at Microlink we also cover compatibility testing as well for assistive technology, things like that. So I think just to give a real brief overview to say that what I want you to do is to think of a ladder, and so the bottom rung of the ladder is compliance to accessibility regulations. So, for example, if we're looking at web accessibility, the first rung of the ladder is compliance, although some would perhaps argue barely. And then the top of the ladder is, and also to look out over the top is to ask yourself, is it usable by disabled people? So that's the sort of the measure, if you like, to say, okay, we've got onto the ladder where we're looking at compliance, but that's not the end of the journey. So I think that my main message would be to say, look, in terms of digital accessibility overall, is you're looking to that ultimate end goal of, is it usable by disabled people? And fundamentally, that is a definition for accessibility. So I think just to leave it there. Are there any sort of questions that people might have, or are there any questions, Tracy, that you have?
Well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to interject at this moment, because there's
Sure.
a couple of polls that I forgot, so my bad. As could we do quick polls, and then we'll come back to you, Neil, because I've got
Sure.
loads of questions about
Sure.
digital accessibility.
Yep, you're more than welcome.
Right, now this was going back to Jody. So have you all been paying attention? Because I know that you're all on the edge of your seats. I wanted to know, with regards to Jody's maturity model, do you want to know more about the People Smart maturity model? As simple as that. Did you find what you said engaged you? Do you think it would be interesting? Do you want to know more about it? Because we're thinking about doing an actual separate webinar. And I wanted to catch you because a couple of people mentioned that we thought we were finishing at 2. We're actually finishing at 3 today. So I really would like to know if you'd be interested in us doing a more in-depth webinar with Jody. Oh, well, that's fantastic.
Well, there you go. That's another.
We'll do another webinar. Wonderful.
Of course.
Jody, if you're around, that's fantastic. Well done.
Yeah, I'm definitely here.
Well,
That's great to know, and it's nice to know that people want to know more.
okay.
That's fabulous.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you so much, Azadeh. Appreciate that. Neil.
They said there were a couple of questions or one.
I think that's the only one that I've got
Okay.
outstanding at the moment.
Fantastic.
If I've got that wrong, my apologies. Neil, I wanted to know in the conversation, and we've got Rehan there. Rehan, if you want to pop up.
Sure.
So I will bring just a quick introduction also to my other colleague, another man of vast experience in physical environmental accessibility. The man basically, again, this is for both for your employees as well as your customers. If you want to transact with everyone, if you have a barrier for a wheelchair user, you also have a barrier for someone who's carrying or pushing a pram. And if that person doesn't go into the store to buy something, it means his family doesn't buy anything from the store. It's a very simplest example I can give. This is really where physical accessibility, and both the digital and physical, is to understand where the barriers are for every individual to transact with your business, with your offering, or with your colleagues to be able to participate in a full day's work. So anyway, here is Rehan, just to give his perspective on the physical accessibility.
Thank you, Nasser. Thank you for the kind words. Well, I would like to just connect with Jody Greer's maturity model. As she mentioned, it was physical accessibility had one of the longest lists, and it's not surprising in terms of there are so many complexities when it comes to assessing a building and approaching how to remediate it. The good part with it is that there are so many options. The bad part, as I have spoken about before, is that people are limited in their insight of what can be done. And one of the things I repeat quite a lot is how to raise the lowest level of the building environment, and which we have seen from time and time again that it is not required a lot of resources, nor is it require a lot of planning, but it requires just a slight upgrade of the inside. And this is where I believe Jody Greer's maturity model will be a very good backbone for starting, because that gives an insight of where you are, and once you want to go take a step further by remediating, that is where we at Microlink can actually provide that help in terms of giving the right decision based on not just what needs to be done, but most importantly, what can easily be done without breaking the budget or putting strain on the financial needs.
So some practical solutions and easy to do, and which is really what they need to know. It's often what puts people off is this is too big and I might get it wrong. Well, it's anything other than that. Just a final talented colleague, and obviously very low profile talented colleague is Tracy. Tracy herself with 30 years of recruitment experience, worked for Business Disability Forum on advising employers how to make the recruitment process more accessible so they can start looking and attracting more talent, disabled talent. So Tracy, over to you.
Thank you ever so much, Nessa. I hope you've all seen me on LinkedIn. I love sharing posts, so if you're doing something exciting, please let us know. You know, we're getting up towards 20,000 followers and connections. So there's bound to be somebody out there that we can signpost you to. But at the moment, we're signposting you internally to the three of us here at Microlink. And what we've been developing between the three of us is a trifecta audit, if you like. I love the word trifecta. I've not come up with anything better, and I really just enjoy saying it. The aim is that we're going to look, because a lot of you would have had an audit done. I did a lot of you. I audited you back in the days when I worked at BDF. Now I'm at Microlink. What we're actually looking at is doing something really holistic that involves Neil, that involves Rehan. So when you have a colleague or you've got candidates that are coming in, if you're doing graduate recruitment, if you're doing a special SEND project, and we've got somebody talking about that later, that you're actually doing the whole piece. So you're not only looking at the policies and procedures on your recruitment programs, you're not only looking at where you advertise, places like Even Break, places like Patchwork, for example, but you're actually actively looking at, are our landing web pages working? Are they accessible? Are the PDFs that we send our offer letters out accessible? Because trust me, when I've done recruitment audits, invariably they're not, because it's at the bottom of the pile. And Neil will tell you, I mean, what's the difference between actually getting it right now or remediating the website? It's quite, it's like 3 or 4 times more expensive.
Yeah, just going to say, I think you know, retrofitting is always the most costly option. So if you can do it from day one, you know, embed it from the outset, that's your best option and the cheapest. So
quick ways, quick wins, Neil.
Yeah.
What should they have? Should they have? How do they know? Is it like the AAA in the corner of a website? Is that what a candidate should be looking for?
Okay, I'd say initially to look at trying to reach level AA compliance. At this stage, I think that's probably the most important level to reach. So that's WCAG 2.1 AA. So yeah, I'd go for that.
So should they be asking internally, if you've got a D&I person or somebody in HR going, ooh, I wonder if our website's accessible for candidates. I wonder if the mobile application is accessible, because they're 2 separate things. Who do they go to in IT? Who do they start inquiring with?
What, for the mobile applications?
Yeah.
I'd say, so internally, it would probably be your your IT or development side of things to go to first in terms of understanding the accessibility of your mobile applications, but also there would also be potentially people in your organization who might be what I refer to as digital accessibility champions, and it might be worth going to them as well to find out who they are and what your organization offers. I think just to very briefly point out here is that say, for example, on your website and also for your mobile applications as well, and you can state this on your website, is to provide what we call an accessibility statement. Now that's crucial because in most cases, a disabled person, that will be the very first thing that they look at. So if it's whether it's on your website or for your mobile applications, is to look at that accessibility statement, and to some degree you can actually specify your accessibility journey. You can say, okay, this is what we are doing, these are perhaps areas that we're trying to improve, but more importantly is that those areas that you have actually met best practice for is to shout about it, use that as kudos to your customers, your clients, etc.
I mean, it's what sort of things, sorry, Nasser, I was just going to say, what sort of things when you're a small company or maybe an entrepreneur and you're setting up your business, what sort of things are you asking the person designing your website to do?
Okay, I think that just very, very briefly that things like okay, is the color contrast of the text on your website, background colors, is that usable by disabled people? So, for example, if you've got a person who is dyslexic, they might actually find that to change, for example, on the website, the background color to a light blue and text to a dark blue. I mean, that's just one particular example. There's lots of different configurations for that, but that I've actually had this experience where I've spoken to a user I was working alongside and testing, and for a particular website in the public sector, and they turned around and said it was the very first time they'd actually been shown how to do it, and I taught them how to do it, and they said the difference it made, and they weren't aware that it could be done. So for example, using like a theme selector on a web page, so that's just altering sort of color contrast, etc., directly on your web page, made such a difference to them, and they were absolutely blown away by it. So little things like that can make a massive difference, and it's low hanging, it's easy to do, and it makes a huge difference to people that are using your website.
So if I were to put a context on all the three themes we just discussed, physical, digital, and recruitment, the context to that is that, well, firstly, hybrid working means we're going to be having people coming to office and working from home. And you've really tried to redesign your workspace to be more agile working. If you don't actually take into consideration those basic access needs of your almost 1 in 5 of your colleagues, then how good is that business into actually delivering the services they want to the customers? Similarly, if you're going back to the element of recruitment, the most basic thing you could do is actually a description of the job itself, not just do the standard 2-page description what you think the ideal candidate should look like. It's just review and see what is it they are asking for, and is it relevant to the talent you want to attract. So these are very practical things you need to do, you could do without spending a lot of money. And I think finally, the digital accessibility, I don't want to preach to the converts. I mean, the past 2 years, what we've seen is a complete change of attitude towards online shopping. Everybody is essentially doing online shopping. Just a tiny change to your website could increase the uptake, could increase the transaction, could increase their customer loyalty. So now, if you ever wanted a business justification, you've just got all three of them. So I don't think we need to even try to argue the case that it's good to do because it's kind to the disabled community. No, this way beyond that. Employers are far more savvy and smarter about inclusion. They know why they have to do it. It's a good reason they have to do it, and I think they are doing it, except sometimes they need more help to get to that to be good. And I think finally is when it comes to the fourth part of this is that once they come into your either they're working for you or they just join your company. The final piece of accessibility is, do your line managers have all the help they need in order to make sure they get most out of those employees? And that's another part about making the adjustments for your employees, and hopefully where the conversation with access to work will go. We're planning to have a session on access to work. Again, that's something that we will make announcements and get access to work team to come and answer questions, because it's such a huge and important intervention. We just want to know when we're going to get it working as efficiently as they need to, in order to actually help tens of thousands of more people. We're coming to a break. If there are any questions, then we'll just give about 5-10 minutes comfort break to go to the next session.
I think we're all good. Just looking in the chat, lots of comments. Thank you, Neil, about talking about color contrast. Really important questions about the best font to use for dyslexics. Somebody's mentioned serif. Serif on here. What would you suggest, Nessa?
No, I don't know. Who's the neurodiversity expert? I think it's Neil. I know what is good for me. I use Veranda because it's much easier for my eye, but certain people find rounded text fonts much better for their condition. But
yeah, I'd say that just generally that a sans serif font, so as Nasa suggested for Dana, perhaps Arial, something like that would be helpful. It's basically that it's a font it's removing those little sort of feet or handles, if you like, on a font, and it's just making it less busy. So that will help perhaps a person who's dyslexic. So yeah, the only thing I would just add in there as well is that although there's a lot of research being done on which is the best font to use, the verdict's still out, other than very generic kind of use a sans serif font. So
the best font is the one that you feel much more comfortable with.
Yeah. Whatever works for you.
And if your website allows that flexibility of choosing the right font, the right color, then hey, let the customer be the king and choose what they want.
Lovely. Can I just ask, we've got 3 quick questions before we go to a comfort break. Azadeh, could you launch the questions for us, please? Okay, so have you checked your recruitment landing pages for accessibility? Yes or no? Do you know if your company or you have checked the landing pages for accessibility? Always an interesting one. There's something like 81% of the top 100 companies in London have inaccessible websites. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's often.
Yeah.
There's actually a famous saying is that if you don't know how accessible you are, it means you're not. So that's a good one to remember.
Highlights as well that if there are companies out there, if you do need help, please feel free to reach out. That's kind of what we do. Did we have another question just before the break? And then we can all go and have cups of tea. Have you checked the physical accessibility? Yes or no? People do forget the physical side of it. So with people returning to work or hybrid working, have you actually checked the physical accessibility of your offices? And then we've got one more question after that, please. So I'm not suggesting you personally, but do you know if the site has been checked? We can have Anna singing in a minute again. Here we go. Oh, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got 66% saying that yes, but 34% saying no. And it's amazing how difficult some sites are to get into. Thank you. I think we've got one last question, and then we can all have a well-deserved break. Have you reviewed your recruitment process? Okay, this is a blatant plug for me. Have you looked at it? Do you want me to come and have a look at your recruitment process? Have you looked? Yes or no? Do you know if it's barrier-free? Is it welcoming to people of difference? Because we're not just talking disability, we're talking the intersectional piece. So is it open for business to everyone? I'd sing, but it's, not the right time of day.
Well, that music is silent, but it's coming. 4, 3. There you go. Yeah,
Great. Okay,
Sorry, it's a
good.
bit late. I couldn't find the unmute. Sorry.
Thanks,
I am
thank
here.
You. All right,
Thanks, Ella.
thank you.
Again,
Thank you.
great
Well,
figures.
that's fantastic. So after the 5 minute, is it 5 minute
Yeah,
break?
5 minutes, please.
5 minutes break. We will have. Thank you, Claire, for making it. She obviously has been traveling today, international conference. That's Claire Cookson. She's the CEO of DFN Project Search, and the background is she's a head teacher, or she was a head teacher, and inspires businesses, public sector, to work with young people with special education needs, to reach them, and she wants to get them into full-time employment, and such a wonderful company, a charity also to work with. So in about 5 minutes, we will see you, and Claire would hopefully will dazzle you what she does and why you should get involved.
She definitely will dazzle.
Yeah.
Don't go away. Come back.
A cup of tea will go really down
Nicely.
very nicely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Claire, it says Martin on your web
It's
page.
all right. It's all right.
I was thinking, that's a very unique name, Martin.
Can we go to the break now so people can have a break, and then we'll come back?
Of course,
and
yes.
we'll sort that out. Thank you very much.
Right. Can I just check my background noise? So
Yeah.
In true Claire Cookson style, I commandeered, in an airport, a check-in bit. I am perching on a check-in, and I was like, is it okay?
That is fantastic. No, you get away with it. It sounds busy, but it's a low enough level. Of course it is.
Well,
thank you for making the effort. You've been all the way up from Oslo, and we really appreciate it.
The funniest place I've ever given a presentation from. I wish I could show you that I'm physically on a check-in desk.
I am next stewardess, so I can show you where the exits are.
At
least your flight has not been cancelled, or you're not in the middle of a strike. There you go.
I tell you what, we ran. We had to run. It was I tell you what, Brexit's got a lot to answer for.
Well, it is. There is a lot of problems for people traveling, at least in UK, for train strikes, and so obviously we're living through a very interesting time. So I think we're going to have to. But thank you for making the effort, and we're glad you managed to make it. And hopefully your ongoing flight, is that you're catching a flight, or you're already here?
No, I just landed.
Oh, you landed. Fantastic. So great. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And we've got a poll to run for you as well. So it'll be a question. So, yeah. Exciting.
Hopefully our audience are making a cup of tea and not sat here listening to us.
Well,
chatting.
I have to say to you, just so you know, that is Ribena. It's not wine, honest.
Fermented for it's left for fermenting for a few hours, I'm sure. Tell us more about your conference. I hope it was interesting.
It was amazing. Yeah, the European Conference for Supported Employment. So
wonderful.
And really people from right across the world. Really interesting. And just loads of amazing leaders in the space. So yeah, really, really good. I've enjoyed it very much.
That must be really energizing as well for you to see that you're not alone. Yeah.
Yeah, really energizing.
Hopefully we'll share some of that with us, because obviously we want to know best practice, where things are happening, and how employers can get involved with these great schemes, because we have some really wonderful video to show that where we took some of our candidates through that journey, and I mean it's just beautiful. The testimonial from
actually
them
almost just, you get quite choked up watching. Seriously, it's honestly, like the ones you do.
And for us, to us, is a proof of concept that everything is possible with a bit of effort and belief that people have got a lot to give. I mean,
as we've now got NASA being recorded, perhaps, Claire, we could do a project search at Microlink.
I mean, wouldn't that be fabulous? And then we could go together, because there's the next conference is the World Conference.
There you go. So you could go, Claire, to a World
Vancouver.
And I'm proud of what the British, the UK model of disability is so open and so inclusive, and it's catching on. You're getting everywhere trying to follow the same model.
We were actually there with one of our big employers, so DPD, the Parcel Force people. They came, and so I was keynote on day one and they were keynote on day two. And it was just so wonderful because then what the audience saw was that real collaboration and what it means to them as a business. It was really fabulous.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So we are coming to that 2:15, and it's been a long session, and we're really grateful for everyone to staying with us. Some people have had to go, but we're recording this.
We're still here.
Oh, absolutely, and we got so much energy. I think we can carry on for the rest of the day, but we'll spare that torture to everyone who's got busy schedule.
And I'll speak louder. Somebody said that mine is a bit muffled, so if I just speak louder, I'll just the poor people on the desk are going to listen to.
It's all good stuff. They could all do
stuff
hearing.
That would benefit from it. Thank you again. So welcome everyone back from your very short break and comfort break. We have Claire Cookson, and she will tell us all about the wonderful work that they do in DFN Project Search Foundation.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my slides if that's okay.
Of course.
So please do tell me if you can see. Let me just get this from the beginning. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Claire Cookson. I'm the Chief Executive of DFN Project Search. I'm just going to spend a bit of time talking to you about what it is, how we measure our success and what kind of data we get. So fundamentally, we are a charity and we offer a business-led one-year transition to employment program for young adults with a learning disability, autism spectrum condition, or both. And we are a real evidence model, and we test out every single thing we do. What we provide, the bit that we do as DFN Project Search, is we provide the models, the training, the resource, the data collection, the analysis, and all of the quality assurance that comes through that. We've got kind of a goal, a mission, and a vision. Our goal is to ensure that everybody with a learning disability or an autism spectrum condition can attain high quality, and that's really important, high quality integrated employment in their local area. And so, okay, we did a big piece of research. We want to support at least 10,000 young adults with a learning disability or autism spectrum condition into a job by 2030 and 20,000 by 2035. I want it to be more than that, but that is a good, first aim. And the vision is to reduce that gap, right? We've got this horrible gap between those with a learning disability and employment and the rest of the population. And so far, over the last 5 years, we've supported 1,800 young adults to secure that full-time paid employment. Here, we have a model that is made up of lots of critical success factors that make up that model fidelity, but I'm going to talk you through the top 6. Number 1, this program, for every single person on it, the aim is employment, but it is employment that is in an integrated setting. It is non-seasonal, and really what we mean by that is don't give somebody with a learning disability or autism spectrum condition a different type of contract to everyone else. That it is full-time. So the government defined that as 16 hours a week. We don't, right? We're looking for full-time work, and they are paid at least the prevailing wage, every single one of them. We focus this program on those that could not get a job without doing it, right? If you could already get a job, you don't need to do project search. You need to do a traineeship or an adjusted apprenticeship. So we really want to make sure this gets to those that need that personalized, really fully immersive experience for a full academic year. We are a partnership. We bring together a collaborative partnership. So we are one bit of that partnership, DFN Project Search. We bring in education, local authorities, adult supported employment agencies, families, and host businesses. And what you get there is that ecosystem of support, right? People age out of their education. They don't age out of their learning disability. They may well need some support, as so many of us do, throughout their whole career. Let's make it available. Let's set up those structures. We are a program that is business focused. We do not ask business to bend around education. We want to do that the other way around. We and all of the partners that come together to make up a DFN Project Search site are committed to continuous improvement, because we really do want this to be the best, and we want to learn all the time. How do we make this experience the best we can? And finally, this program leads to the acquisition of competitive skills. And so in a real high level nutshell, here's what it looks like. It is a one-year program of study where these young adults, they work and learn full-time within a host business. It is their last year of education. That is different depending on who you are. Technically, people with an education, health and care plan can stay in education to 24. This has got to be at the right time for them. We look to place on each of our DFM Project Search sites between 8 and 12 young adults. Every bit of data we have says the more young adults with learning disabilities you have on your site, the better the conversion rate is to full-time paid jobs. And I think partly that's about having all of those networks and that really good job development and more people caring about the outcomes. We really encourage a real richness and variety of learning styles so that we know that's what makes really good business sense. So we know that needs to be the profile of these young adults on programs. Across that academic year, they will each rotate across 3 different departments within that business, not the same department. This is very much based on their vocational profile, their skills and talents, and their career aspirations. We as an organisation, when we pull that partnership together, we make sure that on that site, all day, every day, there is a tutor provided by the educator, and there are 1 to 2 job coaches who are trained in systematic instruction on site, funded through the local authority and the Department of Work and Pension, right? So we de-risk this for the organisation. We're going to do the training. What we're asking for is brilliant, enlightened organisations who are opening their doors saying, yeah, we'll be a training ground. We would love to help train these young adults. And just go back to that last point, the whole idea is the outcome of employment. And this is kind of in a visual, this is what it looks like. You've got that host business, you've got the young adult in the middle, and then you have that whole ecosystem of support around them. And they can then tap into that ecosystem of support throughout their career. It is now available to them. It doesn't work unless we have all of those partners in place. But I guess why? Why is it that we need to do this? Number 1, in the UK right now, if you have an education, health and care plan, so you have a learning disability or autism spectrum condition and you are known to adult services, only 5.1% of that population are in jobs. And I don't even mean full-time jobs, they're just in employment. But we have 1 million children and young adults who are receiving SEND support right now in the UK. We've got 1.5 million people with a learning disability in the UK, and we reckon about 900,000 of those are at working age. We've got 350,000 children and young adults with an education, health and care plan. And by the way, that has gone up significantly in the last 5 years. So we know that's a growing population. We know through MENCAP, when they surveyed, it was about 3 years ago, people with a learning disability, how many do you want to get jobs? They said 65% said they wanted. I'd argue it's higher than that. My lived experience is it's higher than that. But, and if you think about that 350,000 people with an education, health and care plan, statistically, not even 18,000 are going to get jobs. And we have in the UK right now, 1.4 million unfilled vacancies, right? We've got a ton of jobs out there that we can't fill. And we've got a ton of people with so much skill and talent who want those jobs. We've got this horrible disconnect right now. We know that the global pandemic hit the disabled community harder than any other community. 71% of disabled people were impacted by loss of income, furlough, unemployment, or feeling at risk of redundancy. We know that 42% of employers felt discouraged from hiring disabled applicants, and 20% of employers said they would be much less likely to hire disabled people. So there's just many, many factors that are holding this talent pool back. When you look at Public Health England, and they, a number of years ago, they analysed, well, what makes for happy, healthy and successful adulthood? Number 1, a safe and secure job. But I've just told you only 5.1% of that population are going to get to number 1 of what makes for a healthy, happy adulthood. So we know that this is a real problem. We know this is going to have a significant impact on your health. We also know that the wider determinants of your health are massively linked to your social and economic factors. Between 40 and 50% of what makes up your good health is around having a job. It's really clear. Wow. Everywhere you look, every bit of evidence tells us that. But I'll go back. Only 5.1% of those, that brilliant population, are going to get to that. So then what we're saying is it's okay for people to have poor health. So then what I'm going to tell you is that the median age of death of somebody with a mild learning disability is 62. The median age of death of somebody with a moderate learning disability is 63. That is versus the rest of the population, which is between 82 and 85. And I will tell you, there is no evidence to suggest that's anything to do with their physical health. It is everything from that last slide to do with their social and economic factors. We can reverse that when you have a job, a full-time paid job in an integrated setting, paid the prevailing wage, right? We know this. What we also know, and yes, this health is really, really important. We know there's a caveat here that this has got to be a good job. You have to work for an organization that actually cares about humans. So 0-hour contract, it is no damn good. You know, we are looking for good employers, but, and I won't go through all of them, but all of these associated consequences of having a job is what makes us happy, healthy, and enjoying our lives. And I'll just go into a deep, things like building relationships. You build really good relationships when you have a job. And I'll give you an example that touches me every single time. We have a graduate in the north of the country. She lives with her mum. She graduated from DFM Project Search about 8 years ago. Very successful, doing really, really well. And her mum died recently. And she works in hospitality and catering. And it was her colleague that helped her to cater for the funeral. And she said at the funeral that because it was just her and her mum against the world, really. And she said at that funeral, I have always thought that when my mum died, I would die too. And then I realized I had all these people that cared for me because they are her colleagues, and they care for her because they're colleagues, not because she has a learning disability, because she's part of what makes up that lovely relationship community that you have when you have a job. And that's just one of those. All of those things: motivation, a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to feel good about yourself. The money is important, but these things are maybe even more important. You can only achieve them if you have a job. So we at DFM Project Search, when we are looking and measuring and communicating our results, we only focus on employment. And here are the reasons why. We absolutely know that paid employment is transformational in terms of achieving financial, emotional, social independence, and all of those natural supports that you get from your job. We also do know, if we're going to talk about money, there are significant savings to be made from education. If we assume that everybody is going to sit on a local authority budget till they're 24, if they get a job earlier than that, that's going to directly save that local authority and then indirectly our government at least £14,000 a year, right? There's big savings to be made there. We know from the DWP perspective, there's big savings to be made. The earlier we develop employment skills, the more likely we are to have a career, a full career, right? So there's no point waiting around here. From an NHS perspective, thinking back to that health implication, these young adults can either go into work and add value, contributing members of society and have better health, or they're going to cost money to the NHS, because we know then people who are out of work, they take more medication, they have worse mental health, they have worse physical health. We also know we had an external return on social return on investment evaluation done some years ago. And that concluded that for every pound at that time that anybody invested in a DFM Project Search experience, the social return on investment was £3.96. We're just redoing that with pro bono economics. I suggest that will go up, in fact. And then we did some research with the Centre for Social Justice in 2018. And what we found there is that if we could just close the gap between those with a disability in employment, non-disabled people in employment, by 5%, then GDPR would increase by 23 billion by 2030. So there are many, many reasons why it's important that we support this amazing talent pool into work. So here we go. Here's our results from DFM Project Search. Every single year, and I'm going to talk to you about the last 4-5 years worth of data. Every year, 70% of our interns get jobs. 60% get full-time paid jobs in an integrated setting paid a prevailing wage. Out of those that get jobs, over 99% are paid above the prevailing wage for their age every single year. And then just talk about the pandemic. We went into a pandemic. We are a program that is based within a host business. Across the country, we've got 76 host businesses at the moment. And then the world shut down and we were told to stay home, stay safe. In truth, the vast majority of our sites kept going. I negotiated with some others, with Department for Work and Pensions and Department for Education, for these young adults to get funded again, to do their internship again. But a ton of them said, no way, I'm doing it now. Or they were going to age out of education. So what you can see here is a huge amount, and my screen is covering it, so I can't quite see the number, but it's like 300 and something, whatever I'm covering, they secured jobs in
371, Claire, which is an enormous amount.
371, 297 of those were full-time jobs. And this really was in that pandemic where it was illegal to sit on a park bench. We were told to not leave our house. The average salaries were in 2020, 2021, 883, and then the year before it was 873, and the average hourly contracts were 26 hours a week. Here is a slide. This is just encapsulating those 2 COVID years. If I'd have presented this to you the year before COVID, the greater proportion, the biggest bar on the left-hand side, would have said that the greater proportion of our interns transitioned into business and admin roles, which I loved. It bust loads of myths. It was incredible. In the pandemic, the greater proportion of these interns got their jobs in healthcare. Where did we need people more than we have ever needed people? In healthcare. These young adults were frontline key workers, and we have never used that language to describe people with a learning disability, and I will never stop using it. We needed them. They were brave, they were tenacious. Could I have started my career under those circumstances? I really don't think I could. It is so impressive. And just as an example, this young man, he was doing his internship in this hospital. It had to, they felt like, okay, we can't offer all the rotations. We're in the middle of a pandemic. So the on-site team, those tutors and job coaches, they were very tenacious. They started marketing to other departments. They got new departments. It did not stop. He was a runner, moving samples, and then he got a job full-time, moving samples across the hospital, one of which was COVID-19 samples. Like, couldn't have been more frontline. Incredible. If we just look at average wages for that group, so we always take our data 9 months after they finish that program. So these are the interns that completed in June 2021. We take their data then. What you can see, orange bar is the DFM Project Search intern salary. Purple is the minimum wage. You can see for every age group, they are earning more than the prevailing wage across the whole board because they're doing a damn good job and they deserve to be paid for that job. What you can see as well is a general trend that every year we increase the numbers hours that they're getting. It's been really interesting. So we also are concerned, and you'll see this, that our females, the orange bars, are typically always getting less hours than men. So we did a bit of a deep dive into it. Why? What is it? They're all doing the same internship. They're working the same hours. Overwhelmingly, what comes back through sort of qualitative data is that families have a lower expectation of females. So we had a massive push on it. Now, I cannot tell you that this is the reason. I won't know until we can collect another couple of years of data. But you can see this cohort got much closer to the male. So with a push, shining a light on it, talking to schools and saying, come on, we've got to do intervention early. These females deserve these full-time jobs too. Again, what we got really concerned with in the pandemic, and it still exists right now, is that lots of people are being recruited on a temporary contract. We know that that's a really difficult position for somebody with a learning disability, because if you suddenly find yourself without a contract, pretty hard to get in. So just to give you an example, the job coach is stuck with Will. He had a 14-week contract. It now converted to full-time. Like, we care very much about every single intern. We got 630 interns on program right now. We'll have 1,000 by September. Every single one matters hugely. I don't expect you to kind of interpret this, but I just like this slide because over the last 5 years, this shows you the array of sectors and roles that our young adults have transitioned into. They've transitioned into 230 different organizations. So you can open, and I look at this from sort of 10,000 feet looking in at the data. There's really good job development going on here. Nobody's pigeonholed. So we work really hard to do a vocational profile on these young adults and really support them into the career of their choice. We do also take data on where do they get their jobs, inside the host businesses or outside of the host businesses. This interests me. The most recent year that we've analysed, 28% got their jobs in their host business, 72 outside on that market, the open market. What I'll tell you, wherever they get their jobs because they're the right people for the right jobs at the right time. None of this is tokenistic. This is because they have got that job fair and square, and it's super impressive. This is interesting. In the global pandemic, I extracted out all of our NHS data. We partner with a lot of hospitals, but our relationship wasn't with NHS England, it was with individual trusts. And I just suddenly thought, I don't know if they know like what amazing partners they are and how great the conversion rate to jobs is. So I extracted that out. I played that back to NHS England. They were pretty pleased about it. So they commissioned us in the pandemic to set up 42 new project search sites across hospital trusts in England. 500 additional young adults get to do that every single year in hospitals. It is a smart move by NHS, right? Because they're either going to be patients or employees. So DFM Project Search is now on the Workforce Development Plan. They very much see, as been published, they very much see these young adults as their future talent pool, and rightly so. Just for the employers on here, we do concern ourselves very much. Are we meeting the needs of our stakeholders? And a proportion of our stakeholders are businesses. So in 2020, we took data in 2021. And in 2021, we had a net promoter score of 72, which Bain and company define as being world-class. And I say that because what I'm trying to say is there's appetite out there. There are businesses engaging and understanding what an incredible talent pool these young adults are. And this idea that we get to train them on your site means that you try before you buy. We de-risking this. We're not asking you to employ them. We're asking you to support, give us the opportunity to train them. You then have access to this amazing talent pool should roles come up within your organization.
Claire, that is absolutely bloody amazing. Can people actually scan the QR code there and find out more?
Yeah, go for it.
Bits of information. We did have a question, but you've answered it. In the question was around how many of
Claire, we could give you 2 hours on this.
Well,
subject.
we will be doing
and we'll still be short of time. Honestly, you never cease to amaze me. And the first time I saw you present this data, I was overwhelmed. It's such an amazing work you guys do. One question is, I'm sure you covered it, but just to clarity. So what do employers need to pay to get on board with this, or don't they? See that?
No, they do not. So
it's free! Yay!
So this is really the important thing. It's free, there's no risk, and it's such a huge value to the organization. Not because you're being kind to disabled people. I know how incredible these young people are and how passionate they are. And once you've got them, you really don't want to let them go.
No. Correct.
Fantastic. So, Claire, you've been so amazing. And
we did have one question, if we could do it very quickly, because then we've got to move on to Gavin, and I'm conscious of time. There was a question around how willing are companies to make the adjustments that your young people might need to go and work for them?
Very, because they've got an on-site team there supporting them to do just that. And there's this urban myth that it's going to cost you loads of money to make reasonable adjustments. On average, it costs £80. Very often it's free. And so with an on-site team, and we provide loads of training about reasonable adjustments and different ways to recruit and things like that. I think companies, because also if you get it right for somebody with a learning disability or autism, you're getting it right for every employee. So, I think everybody understands the benefits of it. So yeah, it is not hard for us to do that.
So, Claire, what does it take? What does it take to expand it to not to a few hundred a year, but to a few thousands a year?
Wow, quite. We're going to do that, is our plan. What does it take? It takes local authorities and education providers to come on board to recognise that this is, for me, as an ex-head teacher, this is learning at its absolute very best. But we're saying to students is you get to use and apply your skills in real life for an academic year. So yeah, it is the Department for Education. And we work very closely with them. So I'm gonna put my email in the chat now. And please, anybody reach out. And thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you for coming along.
We have a short video before we move on to Gavin. It's 2 minutes video about exactly the kind of testimonial. We took a bunch of youngsters in a job market using a Kickstart program, who basically most of them had disabilities, neurodiversity, and they're on universal credit. And this is after 3-4 months of working for a digital accessibility team. So if you can use the video quickly, then we are straight to Gavin. Is it ready?
Saturday.
What? Sorry, I don't.
Okay,
know
well, I can get it prepared after Gavin, because that's the video. It's a video.
The Alex's Kickstart video.
I'll get it, guys. I'll get it.
Okay.
Thank you. Shall we move to Gavin?
Of course. Gavin, and this is our final guest and panelist, and great guy to know. I personally have twice given him an award for his innovation on what he's done with his. I should declare that kind of a conflict of interest, because I happen to like what his solution offers. And so, Gavin, please, without an introduction, you jump in there and you make yourself known to everyone.
Wow, no introduction. Well, I have to say, following Claire, there is a tangible excitement in the room, tangible excitement in the room of people that are all going, I want to go and do something now.
Yeah.
So I think that's why Tracy's invited me along.
Absolutely, because it's the natural next step.
So
I just introduce myself very quickly. Gavin Neat, 53 years old, white, middle-aged. How long can you be middle-aged for? I don't know.
A long time, Gavin.
Okay, I'm middle-aged.
Yep.
I am ex of Guide Dogs for Blind, ex of the Royal Air Force, and now the CEO of a small but growing and quite timely technology company. And I'm going to tell you all about the technology today. So shall I just crack on, Tracy?
Crack on. I really want to hear,
Okay.
because
Okay.
if you haven't come across Gavin, please have a look on LinkedIn, link up with the guy, find out what he's doing. He's going to tell us a bit about how his product, his app, which is incredibly good value for money. And I mean, that is incredibly good value for money. It just makes all of the other things we've been talking about make sense.
Yeah.
So if you do nothing else apart from get in touch with Claire, get in touch with Jodie, get in touch with us, please get in touch with Gavin.
Okay.
Gavin.
Okay. So Gavin, please.
So just about halfway through the pandemic, my company applied for some work with Sport England. And the reason for the wanting to work with Sport England is because they were like, when we return from this dreadful pandemic, we want to be able to address two of the massive challenges that we found that disabled people are having within the leisure industry. And we had spoken to Sport England a few years before, and we said, well, what are those challenges? And they said, we've done a big study, and the two massive challenges are transport to and from the venue and first point of contact when the disabled person walks through the door. And this is fact. When a disabled person walks through a door, they find it challenging. Sadly, they find it challenging before they leave home. So much to the extent where they probably won't even leave home because of the anxiety they feel about walking through the door. And that is a massive challenge. And part of that massive challenge is because disabled people like to go places where they know they're known. And we live in a world now where many businesses don't know their clients anymore. They don't know who's going to walk through the door. And I say businesses, I mean anywhere where you're met by somebody when they walk through the door. Now that could be anything from a hospital or a retailer or a shopping center or a dental practice or an optometrist or anywhere, a job interview, anywhere where you walk through the door as a disabled person, you're going to be met by somebody who doesn't necessarily know you and doesn't necessarily know how best to interact with you. Now, we have around about, 1.3 billion disabled people on the planet, around about 14.2 million disabled people in the United Kingdom. 70+% of those disabled people have hidden conditions. So for the staff member or the person that's going to meet and greet you to actually understand how to best to interact with you, they're going to have to wait for you to self-declare. Now, I talk about 70+%. You're talking about 9.5 million people who maybe have a hidden disability. You think about those people who are maybe wheelchair users or have a guide dog, there is an increased chance they're also going to have another disability which is hidden. Now, self-declaration is a real challenge, especially when you've got a fairly good idea that when you self-declare to somebody that you're living with schizophrenia, they're just going to stare back at you blankly, or any number of conditions, because they might have been provided with training at some point in the past. But the real truth is that if you've been provided with training and you don't reinforce that training on a regular basis, sooner or later you're going to forget that training. The stats are really quite scary. It's something insane, like 6 hours after you've received training, 75% of that information is gone unless it's been reinforced. So we have to make sure that the staff member that's meeting and greeting the disabled person understands disability. And that's a massive challenge, massive challenge. Let's just think about other stats. And Claire's the queen of stats, but I've got a couple of corkers up my sleeve around about the spending power on goods and services of disabled people. Over £274 billion a year in the UK alone, $8 trillion worldwide. It's a massive issue. 70% of disabled people have said they've had poor customer service to the extent where they wouldn't be happy using that business again. So this is a big problem. And when we go back to the Sport England challenge, was transport to and from. I can't deal with that currently. However, first point of contact when you walk through the door. Okay, a little bit of a time travel. 2003, when I was working for Guide Dogs for the Blind, I started working with GPS, and I started getting really excited about technology and how the solution would help. But more excitedly, by 2006, people had mobile phones that were talking to them using voiceover. So as a mobility instructor, I was following my clients into shops and watching from a distance and thinking, why can't the disabled person communicate with the business before they walk through the door? Why can't I empower disabled people through a system, I had no idea what at that time, so that I could communicate my need before I walked through the door, not with a call center in Peterborough, but directly to the person who's standing behind the counter, or prepared to come out from behind the counter and meet and greet me, or actually come out to the car park and help me with some bags before I go into the building. And that's what happened. 2018, I launched the world's first proximity-based staff training tool, which is Welcome, WELCO capital M-E, where if you look at our logo, Welcome, M and the E are in a different font. Who knew that there was a me in Welcome? It's a little bit of a sort of sudden moment when you go, oh yeah. The problem is that disabled people do not feel as if they are a me. And when they see Welcome above the door, they don't feel that they are included. What Welcome does, Welcome as a lot of people would call it, that includes the disabled person. So here's the stuff that is going to get you, I hope, excited, because everybody's after practically what they can do. Welcome can be set up within 2 hours of somebody signing up for it on our platform. It can cost as little as £30 a month to have this system installed within your business. Your staff have the access to information that will ensure not just that they help the disabled person who's using the platform, but after that, any other disabled person who walks through the door who will get better customer service because your staff member goes, I know what to do. I feel comfortable about approaching people because every day I'm reminded of how to interact with my disabled guests. So we currently have 160 venues across the UK. I am over the moon proud that disabled people who download our free app, because it's totally free to disabled people, can request new venues. So if your venue isn't on our platform yet, it will be soon, because eventually disabled people will go, I want that in IKEA. I want it at Stansted Airport. I want it at my local health centre. I want it at my local opticians. And when they request it, it pops onto our screen. We contact the venue and we say, hey, how do you fancy improving the ability of your staff to interact with every single person who comes through the door? I've been speaking a lot faster than I normally would because I know time is limited. And I'd just like to give a special thanks out to Orla on My Clear Text, because I have no doubt that she is just rocking it as she's piling along the bottom there. So thank you, Orla. So Welcome is just the most amazing tool that people can sign up for in the blink of an eye. So tomorrow morning, if you said you wanted it, it would come straight through to my team and my team would be able to deliver it. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the Northern Hemisphere. We've got nothing in America or USA like this. And there are 600,000 businesses in the UK that we've already identified that could use it. So I guess I've whizzed through that because I know there's lots to do and lots to talk about. And I'm fairly certain that there might be a couple of questions, but we can have a little look, or you might have any questions.
I actually wanted to ask Gavin, if I may. I just wanted to show people. I don't know whether you can see my phone.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, keep that. Yeah, that's.
But I actually signed up as a user, and it's free for users. So if any of you have a disability, long-term health condition, and you just need a little bit of extra help when you're moving around, as I do on occasions, this is fantastic. And if you've got a site, your local MP, your doctors, the local theatre, the cinema, whatever it might be, that doesn't have it, knock on their door and ask them to get it. Who can't afford 30 quid a month as a business?
The good news is, sorry, Nasser, the good news is in Scotland, the MSPs are now going to be installing it in constituency offices. So that's a route, if you can get it into a constituency office, that's a route to having it in a polling station. And then we're going to really motor, because that will be disabled people being helped to actually get the service they need in order to vote. Now, that just gets me buzzing. I get even as buzzy as Claire. Over to you, Nasser.
So, I mean, Gavin, you said that it doesn't exist anywhere in the world. So everyone would be asking, it's such a great idea. Why hasn't somebody done it before? It's because I think it's technology, and it takes a genius like you to work out how to bring technology for good and help people to get on with their lives much easier.
We've got a question here. I don't know what the answer is to it. Can independent living homes join this app for free? The users can. I don't think the homes can they?
So it's an individual that uses it. That said, as a practitioner myself, as a mobility expert, what I wanted to find was a way for a carer, a PA, a parent to be able to have a profile for the person that they're responsible for or helping or supporting, so that when you walk through the door of the business, the staff member interacts with the person you're with rather than you. And there is I guarantee there is not a carer or PA or support person out there watching this right now who hasn't gone, no, mate, it's not me that's buying it.
Yeah.
Them. Which is a horrible situation, because it means that the staff member just wants the ground to open them up, and they go, that's the last time I ever try and get involved when there's a disabled customer. I'm going to get out of here. This solution helps all parties get lifted by this particular solution.
And by the way, Gavin, I heard you say the cost of joining this scheme is not a lot either. It's pennies, I would say, for a small organization to join. Do you want to
for any organization?
Yeah, any organization. And with scale, it comes down. I mean, Edinburgh Airport, the Scottish government took it for 3 years, and the cost comes down. Obviously, a larger venue like an airport will but an independent can have this installed. A charity can have this installed for even less money than that. It's incredibly simple. But some of our partners, Scottish government, Scottish Parliament, we have Westfield Shopping Centre, 8 libraries in Westminster City Council, Kent University, Irish Rail, Exeter, fitness centres, we have theatres, we have optometrists, we have dental practices, anywhere where you're meeting somebody who's walking through the door. Sodexo are signed up for it, ISS are signed up for it, Diageo signed up for it. We've got lots. Oh, churches, I'd love to see it in churches. Request it. I would love a cathedral, visitor centre, anywhere where somebody who's coming onto a church, the minister or vicar can actually understand a little bit more, or people that are supporting. Yeah, let's get a church on board. That'll be the first in the world.
That's fantastic, often. Thank you again, Gavin. And we have 5 minutes, and any questions? And I mean, there's so much there. I think today was so action-packed, and people have so much to take away. But if there's any burning questions, we'll deal with them now. Otherwise, we're going to send the recordings, and we're going to also make all the resources available.
We'll also send the video. The video that we've got runs a little bit longer. We can run it, can we, Anna? But it runs for a little bit over.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
we got
we're
5
okay,
minutes.
but it's a little longer, and we will be putting the link in the resource page for people to watch it at their leisure. So it's entirely up to you. But it is a great video. It is worth a watch.
It's a 5 minutes. Yeah, please watch it. And it's really, these are the young people out of work with, really, according to themselves, no hope of getting a job.
Yeah.
They're working in such an incredibly good area, accessibility, and I think we are just in we've been so lucky to have them. And the idea is to have thousands of those recruited to do the same job. So anyway, let's see if Alex can show us his.
Let's close out with this wonderful video.
Oh, can you actually share this voice as well? Because I can't hear it.
Yeah, there's no sound. I don't know why.
Are you actually sharing?
No, Azadeh's sharing it, so.
We've got a query on whether or not we can save the chat.
Well, why don't we obviously send the video, the link to the chat, and set part of the resources. If you can't get the sound, then obviously there's no point playing it here. But we'll encourage everyone to watch it.
I don't know. There seems to be an issue with the sound, unfortunately.
No worries. Let's not. I mean, it's got 5 minutes. So if there's any questions, we'll deal with them. But we will send that video as part of the resources.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat right now.
Yes, please do.
I think
it's an emotional.
It really is, actually.
And great.
Just imagine there are thousands of job opportunities for those youngsters, and because there's a need for it, because organizations have to be accessible by law, especially public sector, both physical and digital. So that part of the work is not only it's giving them meaningful jobs, good earnings, it actually fills a huge hole in the skill gap that organizations have in terms of making the information accessible. Anyway, we are quite proud of what we've achieved with these youngsters, and we intend to expand it massively, both in university sectors and public sector. Okay, any questions, anyone?
I think we're all good. We're going to send all the information out. I think what I'd really like to, before NASA closes, is to remind everybody that this is an action thing. We want you to take action. I will be coming around knocking on your doors to check you are taking action. You know, we've given you some free resource. We've given you some very, very good value resource. We've got low-hanging fruit. We've got a lot of resource within Microlink ourselves. Please do something. Don't really care what it is, but do one thing.
So hopefully we've more or less given you the reason why you need to take action, how to go and get some help to accelerate your learning and doing, and you've got access to great resources if you need any help. And that said, we have 3 minutes, and I could thank the guests again, both the participants and thank you again, Claire, for making the effort and through your busy schedule. Gavin, your passion is always so catching, and certainly Jody, you are such a force of nature. I mean, I know the passion you've got, and thank you again, and obviously my colleagues as well for taking time out of their busy schedule. So thank you, everyone, and looking forward to another great webinar soon. And just keep a watch out, and we will be promoting it very soon again. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.